In at number 10, we have got the Crystal Wyvern, and this creature is really important to me when it comes to cool art creatures. You can kind of say the Wyverns in general fall under this same bracket. As you know, who doesn't love a really good dragon? I know they're not actually dragons. I don't want to get blasted for that in the comments, but they are very dragon-esque and dragon-like. You get a similar feel from them, and the reason why I put the Crystal Wyvern here is the Blood Crystal Wyvern. Its ability is just, it's really cool to me. Also, they have the hydration buff, which seems a little bit unnecessary, but you know, if you want to dip those little wings into the water while you're flying along, I guess you can, and get the hydration buff. That's nice. And also just the general normal Crystal Wyvern is pretty cool as well. And again, the normal Wyverns just are cool creatures inherently in what they are, how they look like, and their taming method is pretty cool as well. The taming method for the Crystal Wyverns isn't really as cool because you're not going into like a wyvern nest and stealing their eggs. You're just going and passive taming one of these things. But I do largely prefer the Crystal Wyverns, and with that Blood Crystal Wyvern, it really puts them in a higher spot for me over the normal Wyverns. So obviously that's why I put these things here, but you could kind of say the normal Wyverns are here as well, as I would admit they are still all very cool creatures. Next up, we've got the Rock Drake, and no one says that the Rock Drake isn't a really cool creature. Like, you look at this thing, like, come on, look at it. It's so cool in its design and everything that it really stands for, and its abilities as well, as I'm pretty sure this was the first glider. You could say the Archaopterix is a glider, but not in this format. It's not a hang glider that you can use. Also, the Cinemacrops is so much better than the Archaeopteryx, which is why you should never tame that creature, and in my opinion that's one of the worst Ark Tames. Really not worth it. But no, the Rock Drake is significantly better than the Archaeopteryx. It deals tons of damage. It also can absolutely cheese the final boss if you have some Lazarus Chowder on Operation. Not on any other maps, but you know, that's still nice that you can do that. And obviously they're kind of your main way of getting around on that map, and there are so many things to grab on Operation that, you know, you can really utilize a glider like this to its fullest, because the Maywing can't really like grapple onto any of the surrounding area, but the Rock Drake can. So obviously it makes the Rock Drake much more suited to Operation, but the Maywings are more suited to Gen 2. And actually, I'm pretty sure the Maywing isn't even on this list anyway. I haven't put it here because the Maywing is essentially just a platypus. And although platypuses are cute and all that, it really doesn't invoke the absolute coolness within a creature. And the Rock Drake really is a cool creature. You can't deny it. It did something new when it came out, and it's got a really nice design, and it really fits in well with the map. Next up, we've got the Giga, and you could probably say one of the reasons why I'm putting this here is just nostalgia reasons, and I'm not actually putting the Archaopterix here because I didn't get that same kind of feeling with it for being such a great creature, whereas with the Giga, I do. Although I do believe that the Archaopterix is a better creature than the Giga. Just that feeling of when you tame your Giga for a first time, it's such a cool creature. And considering this thing came out in 2016, it's been in Ark for a while now, so it really does kind of make sense to me why I would put this thing on the list instead of the Archaopterix. Like, it's a really big hunking carnivore, and back in the day it was like the biggest thing out there. I'm not actually sure when the Titanosaur released, but it was, you could tame this thing, and obviously you could tame the Titanosaur as well, but like, this is pre-Titanosaur, I'm pretty confident, if my memory hasn't not served me well in that sense. Yeah, the Giga, it's so cool, it's so big, and it deals a hefty amount of damage, and although it might be a little bit dated nowadays, I still really have that coolness factor when thinking of this creature. Here at number 7, we have got the Desmodus, and this creature just has an ability which inherently makes it really cool. It can tame creatures really quickly, as with Sanguine Elixir. To cheat, you can just essentially get 30% of that tamement done with just a click of a button. These things can also gather blood bags, and for once now there is a bat in Ark, which I actually don't hate to death, because the Dionicus is definitely not a creature which I like in any way, shape or form. They give you mega rabies, not great, all of that, and they're in caves and they're annoying, but this thing is very much not annoying. You can ride it, you can glide around on it, it's actually a really fast flyer. You can grapple onto all kinds of terrain as well, like a Tapijara would. Just make sure to not press E while you're in this to kind of get out of this state, because I'm sure someone's done it, and then that's just going to mean you dismount the creature and you probably die. But if you always carry parachutes on you, then that might not happen to you. But either way, Desmodus, really cool creature. Now, it might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I'm putting the Megalodon up next, and this is just mainly because I really like sharks. There's just something about sharks to me that are inherently cool, and the Megalodon is in Ark, and this was kind of like one of the first ocean creatures in the game. And back in the day, this was pretty much all you had in the ocean, and that's why I've got such strong memories of this creature. Again, yeah, maybe not going to be the best Ark creature, but this isn't the best Ark creatures to me. This is what I think are the coolest Ark creatures, and I always have to put the Megalodon here because of my just general love of sharks, and they're really interesting creatures to me. And the Megalodon, just it further amplifies it. It's like a really big shark that you can go around on and just absolutely decimate things with. And it also deals the bleed ability as well, which plays a huge ability to this creature. Obviously back in the day didn't have that, because I'm pretty sure the bleed ability didn't really exist, but obviously it did have a TLC, and now it can do this, and it just makes it an even better creature. And I really do love the Megalodon to death, even if maybe you don't like it so much. At number 5, we have got the Velonosaur, and this creature is one of those where no other creature is really like this thing. Like, it is just so packed with abilities. Maybe not packed with abilities, sorry, I worded that wrong. It's got such a unique ability that it warrants being on the coolest Ark creatures list, as who doesn't want a literal living turret that you can go around on and decimate creatures with? I know I've used that word a lot, but you really can deal some serious damage. And although when you level up melee damage, it doesn't increase the damage of these bullets, you can always level up your stamina, and then you can have a really, really heavy hitting one, and you can always go for a higher level Velonosaur as well. I would pretty much always go for the highest level. They're really not very difficult to tame, and you've got the Velonosaurs on Gen 2 as well, so you've got an even better version of the creature. And I know loads of you out there really do like this creature, and it kind of looks like from this B-roll you can get 2 people on a Velonosaur at once. I'm not sure if you actually can, but it looks like there's a second seat there, and I've never actually thought of that, I've just noticed it. So you probably can get 2 people on one Velonosaur, or you can't, but either way, that actually slightly confused me because I've never seen that in the B-roll before. Let's continue on. Next up, we have got the Shadowmane, and this creature is so packed with abilities. Probably why I said that with the Velonosaur, because I was looking at this creature as it was next up on the list after the Velonosaur. And when I say this thing is packed with abilities, it really is. And also, who doesn't want a lionfish lion? That is its kind of general code name in the game. Like, if you look at this thing in the game files, or you want to spawn it in with a command, you're going to use lionfish lion. And you know, it does kind of make sense. It's a lion meeting a fish, so that makes sense. Either way, they have insane just general mobility, as you can see there, and they also do have the hydration buff. Makes a lot more sense than the hydration buff on the Crystal Wyvern. They have the pack buff. They can't deal the bleed ability, otherwise they'd probably be way too OP. They're really mobile in the water. They can also go invisible too, and they can charge up their attacks over time to deal loads of damage. Their only real downside, and the not cool thing about them, is their taming method, because it's an absolute pain. But once you've got past that and you've got yourself some really high level Shadowmanes, I would recommend just getting a male and female, really high level, breeding them. You're going to have so much fun with these creatures. Now, who doesn't love a really good Reaper? And in the number 3 spot, we have got the Reaper, and this creature just, it reeks coolness in a sense. I don't know why I would describe it like that, but you know, it kind of makes sense. This thing probably doesn't smell particularly nice whatsoever, but at least smell-o-vision has not been invented yet, and maybe hopefully it won't come to the commercial market. It's not really something which we need, or that might be what you need, but for me, definitely not. And this thing really does pack a punch in the damage department, which usually does play in getting a really cool creature. Like, you have a creature that deals so much damage, it's big, it's bulky, it's beefy, it really packs a punch, and this creature does, and its taming method is like so interesting as well. It really does make you feel like you've truly achieved something amazing once you've actually fully tamed and raised one of these things, because it is definitely a lengthy process, especially on Operation. Doesn't really feel as great on Gen 2, as the Reaper could literally be your first tame on the map, and you know, that seems a little bit cheaty, but Gen 2 is generally that kind of map, which is why I tend to stray away from it a little bit more. I kind of prefer the more primitive side, which I kind of think stops after extinction really, and extinction kind of goes off a little bit, but I still think extinction kind of works because those bosses are insanely difficult. Next up, we have got the Dionicus, and this thing can deal bleed damage to bosses, which is partly why it's here, and it's just such a great creature for everything. It generally just has to be on here. It's such a mobile creature, it's so easy to tame as well. Its tame method isn't the least interesting, it's kind of pretty much the wyvern tame, except a lot easier because you don't have to go into a wyvern trench. You just need to go around the chalk cliffs biome, and then boom, you can find yourself a Dionicus nest and tame yourself a Dionicus, unless those eggs don't spawn, a bug that probably wildcard will never fix, especially because like it's on old Ark, so nothing's really gonna come new to that game anymore. But as you can see, that Dionicus absolutely decimated that Bronto there, and like these things also have the pack buff, so you can really get through some bosses quickly. Unless you're on extinction, then I wouldn't use them, because you kind of need Gigas or Carcharodontosaurus for that. Probably Carcharodontosaurus actually, because they're a lot more reliable than the Giga, but they do take a little bit longer to tame, so it depends which way you want to go. You just really do need something for maps like extinction, but that makes sense, doesn't it, really, when you think over it. And the Dionicus, yeah, not going to defeat the Titans, but every other boss it pretty much will, and it's got really great mobility on top of that as well. I've probably already talked about this, but still, it can scale up walls. It doesn't take any fall damage, which is a really nice benefit, and it's generally just a really nice, cool creature, which is why I've got it in at the number 2 spot. And in at number 1, I've got the Blood Stalker, and I might be getting a lot of disagreement here with the coolest Ark creature being this thing, or something might say it's the Reaper or the Shadowbane or something like that. Well, I personally think this thing is cool, and for spider lovers out there, no, I mean spider haters out there, you probably don't agree with me, as this is a very spiderish-y creature, if that's even a sentence. But I really like the way it moves, the way it looks as well. I'm always kind of fascinated with creatures like this. It doesn't really ick me out as per such. I kind of embrace it more, and it's such a great underwater creature. Like, it's so useful, which makes it really cool for me, as it's maybe that wasn't its original intended use, although it did have some design around underwater travel and just general water travel, as you'd use it a lot on the Gen 1 ocean biome, as it's kind of your main travel mount. So it kind of has been designed for that, but people don't really usually give it a lot of credit and merit for that, and that's why I think that this is the coolest Ark creature, because it actually finally gives me a creature which is really reliable for general underwater travel. Also, I really like its design. Its tame method when it came out was very new and inventive, the exact same as the Desmodus's. Obviously it can't get loads of blood bags, kind of would make sense if it did, but you know, that just didn't happen back in the day. You just need to extract them from your own body. And also, I kind of, it is a slight hindrance, but when its health gets really low, it kind of eats health out of you as well. Unless you've got blood bugs in your inventory, it will eat those. It's such a nicely designed creature, full of loads of abilities, with a really great model design, and just some really great uses, that I have to put this thing at the number 1 spot. I'll probably get some disagreement for this, but personally, for me, this deserves to be here. In at number 10, we have got the Galley, and I'm sorry to all Syntac lovers out there, or just Galley lovers out there, or maybe Syntac himself if he's even watching this video, because the Galley is a staple creature for him, but for me, I really just don't like this as a creature. It doesn't really have much use to me, and it is so irritating and annoying to tame. Not necessarily just because it is a difficult tame, it's not actually a hugely difficult tame, apart from the fact they die so often when taming one. You'll need trank darts instead of trank arrows. If you use trank arrows, you're just going to kill one of these things. Once you have one, their weight isn't actually that great, so you're probably not actually going to be able to get loads of resources across the map at the speed that a Gallimimus can just go at default, because this is their default speed. Yes, albeit pretty quick, but still, considering their health and their feebleness in everything else, they really just aren't a good creature, and they're not worth the tame whatsoever. And their saddle was actually kind of expensive for what they do as well, although that doesn't make a bad creature. It's just another deficit again, which again makes these creatures just even less enticing to use for me. You can always just use like the Procoptodon, which was just there. That is a much better creature, which is just so much more robust in all of its features, and the Galley just doesn't have that, and it's kind of a shame because there's an essence of community with this creature, with obviously YouTubers like Syntac, but most people kind of know you don't really tame the Galley, you kind of avoid this creature, and it's a little bit of the meme. And I was actually going to put the Dodo here instead, but I can't do that to the Dodo, can I? And also the Dodo is really useful for simple kibble, so it definitely isn't deserving on the list. Unlike the AI list, which put the Dodo right in the #1 spot. Definitely would not do that. Next up, we have got the Paky, and this creature kind of had to be here when you think of it. Like, this creature is so unnecessarily long to tame with its actual tame. It's not very difficult to tame. It's not like the process is complicated. It takes ages to tame these things, and they're not even particularly useful. They can't even gather berries, and their kind of one use could be dealing torpor, but it's in such a controlled little area, and also it'll do more damage than actual torpor. They still don't deal a lot of damage. Anyway, it's just not worth using these creatures for that use, and they're just really slow and not particularly useful for absolutely anything. If they're a berry gatherer, then maybe it would improve a lot, and possibly I'm being pretty dumb, but I have never been able to gather berries with these things, and I'm pretty sure you can't. If you could, then tell me down below, and my opinion might change these things slightly, but still, I really don't think they're good tames. It's just a waste of a position. Get yourself a parasol that can gather berries, and they are so much of a better creature in the early game. Like, yeah, it could kill a raptor, but it took like over a minute for it to do this. Obviously, I had to edit the video so it would actually fit in the B-roll, but it's just really not a good creature. Don't tame one. Next up, we have got the Archaopterix, and I'm just putting this thing here partly because its taming food is unnecessary. It uses chitin. Really? Why? Also, these things spawn in the redwoods, not the friendliest biome to tame in, and since the glide suit came out, they really aren't useful, so I have to put them in the worst Ark creatures list, as there is absolutely no use for these creatures anymore whatsoever. This creature is useless. To carry this thing around, it's just a slog, and you can't really get much use out of it. Just get a normal flyer. It's actually easier to get a Pteranodon than one of these things, as the biome when you tame one of these things isn't particularly friendly, and a Pteranodon is going to be so much better than this creature, or even like any just flyer or glider. It's going to like wipe this thing out of the park. There is no use for this creature to be in Ark. But also, the cinema crops exist, so this doesn't need to be here. At number 7, we have got the Microaptor, and again, we kind of have a useless creature. This thing can't really do anything in particular at all, and obviously, maybe, yeah, you could use it to knock players off a mount. There are just better creatures like the Desmodus can pick players off a mount, and it still is quite a finicky use case, and it doesn't work very well or effectively. There really is not a huge use for these creatures to be used in that scenario, so they're just pretty obsolete, and again, not the friendliest to tame because they often come in packs, and they're just an absolute pain to deal with, kind of like Palovias, although Palovias do have a slight use, so obviously I'm not putting the general Palovia on this list. They don't need to be in here. Next up, we have got the Ovariraptor. Some people might say this is an unpopular opinion to put here, as surely the Archaeopteryx and the Microaptor are less useful than this thing, as it kind of increases the rate that eggs will be laid by creatures, but it isn't an essential thing to me, at least, and maybe to people that do want loads of them. I have a feeling it's not going to make the biggest difference. Maybe the Oviraptor is an insane creature to you, but the taming method is pretty unnecessary, and I really don't like these things as a creature, and I think their use case is kind of pretty useless, like the Dimetrodon and incubating eggs. Just use air conditioners. I know there isn't really an alternative for this creature. I just think it's really useless. Next up, we have got the Oranio, and this creature is so useless. Like, its tame method is a really annoying passive tame, and on top of that as well, it just really doesn't have much use of a creature. I'm going to put the Titanoboa here as well, as it kind of follows under a similar league. Obviously not the same tame method as Titanoboa's tame method, is arguably even worse, and that creature is arguably even less useful, especially considering the new kibble system, whereas before it did actually have a use, and nowadays it doesn't. Just these two creatures, they can't do anything. They're unnecessary tames, and there's no use to these things being in the Ark game at all. Maybe if the Oranio could climb walls and the Titanoboa was still useful for kibble, they wouldn't be here on this list, but they're useless, so they are. Next up, we have got the Pego, and I'm going to kind of put the... Well, I'm not. People might say, well, why wouldn't I put the Ichthyornis here? Well, the Ichthyornis actually kind of has a use. It can gather back black pearls and all of that stuff. So, no, it does not deserve to be on the worst Ark creatures list. And I've been throwing the word useless around, but this is still the worst Ark creatures list, not the most useless. But they are, in some ways, big synonyms of each other. But the Pego kind of does have one use, which is it can actually gather berries. What am I turning into a northerner now? It can gather berries for you, which is actually quite a nice feature for a creature like this to have. Although you're taming these things on accident, no one's actually going out to tame one of these things. The way you tame one, you just put berries in your last like your hotbar, and then it will steal them, and then it will tame. So you can tell how that would happen on accident. And all of my Pego tames have been on accident, and they're really just not useful. They don't do anything. They just sit on your shoulder and do nothing, and there's nothing that you can really do with them. Again, kind of falling into the worst Ark creatures list. It just doesn't. It doesn't do anything. It can't do anything, and it doesn't really need to do anything because it's not really a big part of the Ark game. It's just a huge annoyance of a creature, and once tamed, you really just can't get anything out of it whatsoever. At number 3, we have got the female Megalosaurus. The male one is actually a pretty good thatch gatherer, but the female one cannot attack whatsoever, so it has to be on the list. It is essentially just used to breed Megalosauruses, so then you could get a better male Megalosaurus for better thatch gathering. Don't know why my words are not working today, but yeah, this creature is useless apart from that one thing, which is why it's here. It is such a bad Ark creature. You can't do anything with it whatsoever. You can ride it, and you can jump around with it, and you can move around the map with it. It can't attack though, like the Diplo, but at least the Diplo has knockback, and the Diplo is a good berry gatherer. That gives it some merit. This thing just can't do anything. It feels like whenever you press the attack button or something, if you're looking to that, it just feels like this creature hasn't been coded properly, like there's something wrong with it. But no, there is nothing wrong with it, and if you ever tame one of these things, I don't know why you would, unless obviously you're breeding, and you don't know they don't attack. Well, now you do, because these things don't attack, so don't tame it unless you're doing breeding. Really, just one of the worst Ark creatures. Why don't you at least give these things an attack? And at number 2, we have got the Compsognathus, or just the Compy. It's called the Compy in Ark. Don't know why I decided to do the whole long fancy name, but hey ho. And this creature can only be tamed with prime meat. Its torpor goes down ridiculously fast, and once tamed, maybe you could send it to attack something slightly. Really just doesn't have a use. And I'm kind of going to put the Listro here as an honorable mention as well, because it follows a similar suit. Again, kind of has a use like the Ovariraptor, where it will buff something from your creatures that will buff the XP. Just, again, for me, really just not a useful creature. You can't get anything out of these things. And number 1 is anything you really tame with the fish traps, as you do tame that creature if you let them out of the fish trap. And I know maybe you might say that's a little bit of a cheat and it doesn't count, but you have tamed it, so it's there. So coelacanths, saber-tooth salmons, trilobites, all of those things. The worst Ark tame just by far. Like, honestly, you can't use these things for anything. They're just there. Obviously, you can use them when in a fish basket to tame a Shadowmane. That's kind of nice. But you can't when they're out in this form, so that's why they're in at the number 1 spot.
So, thank you to my wonderful patrons, Ekaterina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masajewski, and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members, but thanks to all of these guys.